very impromptu video, and I apologize for the camera angle. I am not in my home and currently away from the production space, and that's the reason there will be no eye-level view in this video, and if that doesn't bother you, continue to watch. Now, the primary emphasis and topic of concern of this video that I'm making is the problems of communication as an INTP and possibly and potentially a problem in communication that most NP types have. I know notably that I as an INTP have a very tough time with verbal communication, particularly because of the problems and inefficiencies of language and the symbolic representation systems of logic and analysis that exist in my mind. So I'll start with this in saying that as an INTP, I lead with my dominant executive function, introverted thinking, and introverted thinking, for me, at least in my own space and how I use it, it's a systematic schema of logical operators and rules of inference. So in introverted thinking, it does not generate ideas. It looks at things in the world and puts them through an algorithmic system or mechanism to come to conclusions about them, and that's it. Introverted thinking is not a verbal linguistic function, at least that's how it shows up in my space. And that's very difficult for the mere fact it makes introverted thinking seem shy insofar as verbal expression or representation, because at least in my own experience it doesn't represent the world nor its ideas through just pure linguistic or verbal representation. And what I mean is this, when I'm talking or when I want to communicate something, I'm primarily searching for accuracy in the information, and I'm trying to create a one-to-one correspondence between the representation, the phenomenon in the world and the means of representing it or describing it or portraying it. I want a one-to-one correspondence. I want what I'm trying to convey and communicate to be so inextricably similar through a means of logical processes or just a system of rules and operations that when I'm talking about A, it implies B, or is necessarily connected to B, or is the best approximate descriptive tool for what B is in the relationships that emerge from the factors of what B is. So A would be the word, B would be the thing, the phenomenon, the object, the concept, whatever it is. And A are my words. And what's so difficult, particularly with English, is there's no fixed meaning to any words. There's such thing as common language versus technical language. And my mind, by, I think, necessity, or just by design and motivation, gravitates towards technical language because it's fixed and it's something that's only changed and transformed by qualifiers, and that's it. It's where normal common usage of language is not like that. It's always changing, and it's something that's taken by society and the common populace and given its meaning by way of its use, and that's just something that's very annoying and aggravating to me as an introverted thinker. And it's part of the reason for my problem of communication. Now, it's also something that I realize in my use of introverted thinking is it does not represent things in terms of language.
Have you seen a dog here?
It does not represent things in terms of just verbal language. It represents things in terms of symbolization. And I think the best way I can describe this is if one studies the Japanese symbol and language system of kanji. There were all the letters and all the descriptive tools started with very specific images, and then the images over time were simplified and generalized and made in somewhat of a linear manner and given exact details by way of strokes and key characteristics of the symbols and giving its syntactical structure to it. Its meaning is derived from a very fixed and stringent codification of images, and that's how introverted thinking works. To whereas I have things such as almost analogous to mind maps and charts and symbolic representations, and if anything, they're images, but they're not images like one would think in a book, or in a picture book, or a child's book, or as visual, spatial relations. And so far as what's probably natural in most people's mind, it's probably why I enjoy mathematics so much, is because I use symbols heavily in my mind, and symbols in conjunction with the words and pictures help me give meaning to what I'm trying to express, or help me express and explain things. So being a dominant introverted thinker, when you put me out on the island with just pure verbal expression, it's rather difficult and it's quite hard. And despite appearances, I think people, they hear the symptoms and they assume homogeneous etiology for all symptoms, meaning that people hear the way I speak and they think because I'm articulate, or I've been accused of or complimented of being quite elegant in my speech and manner, that verbal communication must be something that's easy for me, and it's not. It's something that's wrought with a great deal of difficulty and problematic in so many ways, because language as a tool is so sloppy and messy, it seems, and I like the accurate and fixed means of communication, but primarily just with the assumption is this, that I'm borrowing this from a medical handbook, is that you look at symptoms, but don't assume that symptoms arise from the same cause. So the cause for my articulation and potentially the elegance and quip of my speaking and mannerism is the desire for accuracy and syntactical representation. I care about saying the precise meaning, and I care about and verbal efficiency, or just efficiency in general. So I'm going to select the words that say the most in them with the least amount of verbiage, and then I'm going to use the words that convey the greatest amount of meaning in relation to all the other syntactical elements that are in whatever phrase or sentence or speech I'm going to use. So for example, instead of saying very strong feelings or strong feelings, I say visceral. Instead of saying clear, instead of saying foggy and vague, I say opaque. And instead of saying misguided, I say obtuse. Instead of saying completely redundant and stupid, I say asinine. I'm eliminating too much verbiage in those selections, and that's a concern for efficiency and accuracy. But it's also, and they're also they're lying also in that action is the concern for syntactical accuracy. I just care about getting the right meaning, and words have a funny relationship to them. They're very relativistic, as I think, and I don't really like that, but that's why the symptoms appear the way that they do. But it's not because speaking is easy for me, because it's actually one of the most difficult things for me to do is to verbally express myself. I'm much better at writing things, and I'm much better at using mathematics and symbol systems just to communicate something. It's why I'm a very good tutor, because I have a set of symbols and have pictures I can draw, and I can use my words to bring meaning to the fray for that person's mind and understanding so that they can understand me. And it leads to my next quip about just the struggles with communication is that much of what I say falls on deaf ears because I'm a dominant introverted thinking type. Almost everything I say falls on deaf ears. They don't hear or they don't understand what I'm saying. And I'm just greatly misunderstood and misrepresented a lot of times in things I say. For example, I said to an INTP friend that I may be a bit more sensual than and when you see me outside of school than when I'm in an academic environment because I'm not as anxious. And they took that as me meaning sensual as in sexual. And no, I mean sensual as in sensitive to external stimuli, visual, tactile things. I'm going to be my extroverted intuition is going to be much more evident, and I'm going to be observing things in the environment and actually caring about those things, and much more flighty and sort of having more of the natural ADD disposition I have when I'm not going through the school year because I'm not medicating myself and things of that nature. So I was trying to describe my behavior, but it was a she, and she unfortunately took it to mean completely the wrong thing. And it's all falling on deaf ears. So much of the things I say, they fall on deaf ears. Nobody gets what I'm saying because I use language in a very technical and specific and fixed way, and Lord knows that's not how most people use language. And it's actually quite frustrating. It's probably another reason why I don't like to talk, because you're not going to understand what I'm saying anyways, it seems like, and it doesn't matter how much I simplify and strip down the expression, it's just not going to be understood. And in using one word, it means so much. That's why I like Latin, and I make up words for the sake of accuracy. I don't know if I created the word proto-linguistic, but I know in my conception of it, I was writing a paper on the evolution of morality, and the evolution of personality. And this paper I was writing for a class, I didn't have a word that said, there was no word that existed that said what I wanted it to say. And I am not naive to believe that linguists, I don't know what you would call somebody linguitions, I suppose is what you would call somebody who studies linguistics. I'm pretty sure linguitions came up with the word proto-linguistic before I ever came up with it, but at 17 years old I had to write this damn paper, and I knew there was nothing that fitted, so I came up with the word proto-linguistic. And proto and linguistic says you could write a paragraph on what those things actually mean and their translation to English language, but it's perfect for that sentence and perfect for what I'm saying and trying to convey the accurate description and meaning of something, and therefore that's why I use it for its utility insofar as efficiency and accuracy. And it's to say that the next trouble and the next bane of communication, verbal communication, for me as an INTP, and probably just as an NP in general, is the frequency and the use of extroverted expressions through extroverted intuition and coherency, and the sort of abbreviated verbal fluency is what I would say, that most people speak slow because the associations that are coming up in their mind are happening in just at a rather average or reasonable clip, to whereas when I'm looking through the chains in my minds of thought, they're very much like fast-moving train cars. They're coming with such rapidity and just continually propagating at every instant and sliver of time that it's rather difficult to sit there and chain it all together in one coherent manner. And it's why I seem like I'm jumpy and flighty and moving from topic to topic when I'm talking to somebody, and why I may seem whimsical and people don't really like to take my presentation serious. But It's just to say this, that extroverted intuition, it's not necessarily because it's something that's concerned with functionality in the environment. Extroverted intuition, people look at it as a ideation machine, and it is somewhat, but its ideation is it's in respects to objects in the environment and their functionality. It's trying to pull out the essential characteristics of what a thing is or what it does across a multitude of platforms, and making associations off of that. It decontextualizes and generalizes things. That's not something that leads. That's not something that leads itself to easy communication. Just with the ineffectiveness and the sloppiness of language, and the NP, they're always taken as if they're just dumb to some respects, and that's not true. We can't fit the framework at which things already currently exist, and it seems like a motivational aspect of extroverted intuition is breaking boxes in the current fixed categories of things to begin with. It's iconoclastic by nature, and so you take something like introverted thinking, you put it with extroverted intuition. They're both, one's concerned with complete accuracy and rigor, and the other one is concerned essentially with iconoclasm. It's like good luck. Communication is just dreadful and a horrible thing at times for me, and I do it because if I don't do it, people just seem to not be able to tolerate my behaviors. I have to go around explaining myself with just the best accuracy and detail, or else people probably would have lynched me a long time ago. And it's not, it'd probably be for the reasons that Socrates was lynched, and not necessarily for any racial, ethnic reasons. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is just that people don't like what they don't understand, so that's what leads me for the impetus of communication. It also seems to be the main vehicle for rhetoric and persuasion, and so I just realized out of necessity, and quite honestly, I think, anyways, I'm not going to say what I think, but just quite honestly, it's out of a means of necessity rather than a like or a taste for it. If I could present mathematics or write highly I would even say esoteric academic papers, and people would read them and be able to understand them, I would just do simply that. But for the mere fact that most people wouldn't know, people don't know what I'm talking about when I try and communicate with them in a simple manner. But people really wouldn't know what the hell I'm trying to say if I was to get as technical and pursue every chain of relevancy and thought that actually propagates in my mind. Just communication, it's a challenge, and just too often people are making assumptions about what something is for me. I suppose that's why I also made the video on the organization of subjective experiences, because don't allow appearances to determine necessarily what you think of something. The underlying mechanisms, or why something is there, for what variables cause that thing to arise, are probably more important. They're not probably, they are more important, and the prominent agents in which you should investigate and base your opinion and your thoughts off of. And something that would be, I think, a second thought to people who are intuitive in nature. Well, excuse me, a first thought for people who are intuitive in nature, but or just a primary thought or leaning. But sensors, or just people in general, I think sometimes it's hard for them, because what I'm saying, it just seems as if I have to say, he who has ears, let him hear, because not everybody can understand me, and not everybody can hear me. It's like my existence has just been one where 90% of what I say falls on deaf ears. But I'm not complaining, I'm just saying primarily this, that I don't care what I sound like, and I don't care what it seems like in my expression and my communication. Language and communication are very, very difficult things for me. And they may be something that's difficult for our NPs in general and for anybody who's a dominant introverted thinker, but this is just my own experience and the reason for such things, or at least I believe, at least when I think about it, to come to these conclusions for the reasons for such things. So just share, I suppose, your relation to communication in respects to language and the use of language, verbal language, because symbols do count as a type of language and pictures count as a type of language. So particularly verbal language, and the question if you have great articulation or verbal acuity, does that therefore make you comfortable with the use of language? Because even to this day, in my early 20s, and I'm still not comfortable with words. I just use them because I have to. Okay, so that's my video. Thank you.